Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. If you haven't heard me mention it before, I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago. Stephen and I were there representing EREBUS at the Wind Up Watch Fair, which was huge. Now, I had been planning to record some footage, but I wasn't really feeling well. I was a bit sick throughout, so you're gonna have to content yourself with a bit of a photo montage travelogue today instead. It was my first time in New York, it was my first time in the United States of America, and my goodness, it did not disappoint. For example, I managed to get straight off the plane and straight to a Rangers ice hockey game at Madison Square Gardens, which was awesome, but not as awesome as the Yankees postseason game we managed to score tickets for the following night. A baseball game has been on my personal bucket list for 20 years now, and the atmosphere was just incredible. Undoubtedly helped along by the fact that the Yankees won, and everybody was drinking beers that were 1 pint and 9 ounces in volume. For a bit of a change of culture, we also went to see Rigoletto at the Met. That was another personal bucket list item. Just don't ask me how much the tickets cost because I've been too frightened to look at my credit card since I got back. Plus, we did all of the tourist stuff that we had time for. We walked through as much of Manhattan as we could. We walked through Central Park, through Harlem, through Hell's Kitchen. We walked to the 9/11 Memorial. We walked to Wall Street. We saw the fire station that they used in the original Ghostbusters. We went out on a boat trip on the Hudson to see the Statue of Liberty and Jersey City. We then went up the Empire State Building, which was just incredible. And remarkably, it was almost t-shirt weather when we were up there on the 86th floor in mid-October. Plus, we ate all of the New York specialties. We had a big old pastrami sandwich, we had New York pizza, and of course we had a bagel. Plus, we visited Times Square at all hours of the day, and it was always really busy. We generally saw as much of the place as we possibly could in the time that we had, and all of that was before the actual watch show. Wind Up was incredible. It was really intense, it was really busy. Over 10,000 people came through over the course of the 3 days, and I personally met a whole bunch of other watch guys that I had spoken to over the years, but not actually seen in person, including Andrew Morgan and Andrew McCutcheon, and we had dinner with the legend that is Mark from Long Island Watches. Let me assure you, he is every bit as nice in person as he comes across on camera. I also met Watch Chris and Anthony from Chronometer Check, plus a few reprobates that I was already all too familiar with, unfortunately. And I met a whole bunch of you lot. So many people came to see Stephen and I, to say hello, many of you wearing EREBUS watches. People brought us booze, people brought us baseball caps. One guy called Christian even brought us in a pizza from a different state. I gotta say, the welcome we received was incredible. It was so warm, it was so friendly. I think New York is arguably the world's most overhyped city, but honestly, it didn't disappoint. It really didn't. And the locals were amazing. We had people in front of our stand, in front of the EREBUS stall, arguing about ice hockey, arguing about baseball, arguing about pizza, and at one point even arguing about bagels. How New York is that? It was hilarious, and it just added to the overall experience. But there was one thing missing. A new watch, of course. I couldn't travel from one side of the globe to the other and not come back with a ticking memento of my time there. I actually ended up with two. You'll see the other one next week, but today it's the turn of my brand new Brew. I met Jonathan, the brand owner, on the Friday. I asked him very nicely on the Saturday if he could source me one of his metric models, and I bought it from him directly just as the show was closing on the Sunday. He's a lovely man, and in many ways this watch I think represents everything that's good about the micro scene. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Still here. Thank you very much for indulging me. As you can tell, we had a fantastic time, and circumstances and finances permitting, we hope to attend at least one of the 3 wind-up fairs in the States next year. All right, on to the Brew. Now, Brew are owned by Jonathan, the gentleman that you saw me with in the photo in the intro. They're now almost in their 10th year. They were formed in 2015. Jonathan himself is an industrial designer, and this whole product reeks of A, his background in industrial design, and B, the maturity that Brew now have as a brand. You know, have a look at the packaging here. It's all so nice. Polishing cloth, even that is a little bit special. The instruction manual is not just a standard instruction manual. It's a lovely little photo book giving the inspiration for the watch and so on. Very nice indeed. Now, I did size this one in New York. I could probably take out one more link. It was nice that it came with a sizing tool. Not for the big wristed, therefore, I only had to remove one link total. So if you've got over a 7.5 inch wrist, you're probably going to have to ask them for extra links from the factory. So there it is. This is the Brew Metric and this is the retro dial, although to be honest, I don't find it particularly retro, but hey, if that's what they call it, then I guess that's what it is. Now, I included Brew in my World's Best 25 Micro Brands video earlier on this year, and I said that the model I admired the most was the retro dial metric. So it is perhaps inevitable that I ended up with one of these in my collection at some stage, and it was fantastic to buy it in the home of the brand from the brand owner directly. Now, in terms of dimensions, I didn't even check the dimensions, I just wanted to buy the watch. This one is 36mm in diameter, although I gotta say, it wears a little bit bigger than that. 11.3mm thick with a 41.7 lug to lug. Now, that sounds very compact. 20mm lug width, although I have absolutely no intention of taking it off the bracelet. I think the fact that the bracelet flares out beyond the lugs, though, helps add a bit of chunk. 50 meters of water resistance, 129 grams. Now, 129 grams is actually quite chunky for a 36mm watch with a mecha quartz movement. They don't tend to have an awful lot of weight. Apparently, the CNC machine the whole case structure from one billet of 316L stainless steel. Perhaps that is where the majority of the weight comes from. Movement in the back of this one, I mentioned it was mecha quartz. Specifically, it's a Seiko VK68. Now, if you hadn't already worked out, there is a coffee theme running through the entire brand. Their logo is a coffee bean, and it features on the dial of the watch, on the crown of the watch, and on this screw-on case back. Now, 50 meters of water resistant, yeah, that's fine, to be honest. That'll do me, and I'd imagine it will do the majority of people who do end up picking up one of these. Quick release spring bars, always nice, although as I said, I have no intention of taking it off the rather nice bracelet. There is the piece of CNC machined 316L stainless steel that is the case. I'm guessing, therefore, this is a two-piece case. So the bezel and the mid case are part of the one piece of steel, and the screw-on case back forms the second piece, rather than what is the normal case where the bezel is a separate piece of metal and is screwed into the mid case. Very nicely done. Mostly a fine brush throughout, though it does have a high polish running from lug tip to lug tip. Unsigned pushers, which is the norm, high polish pushers and a high polish crown, not screw down, just push pull with that nice coffee bean logo on it. And as discussed, the bracelet is rather nice. The finish mimics the case exactly, so fine brushing on the top surface and the side surface, little high polish chamfer on the edges of each link, meaning that high polish chamfer runs all the way around the outer edges on both sides. Very kind of retro-futuristic, especially given the taper. The flare out from the case there is at 26mm, it tapers all the way down to under 16. So yeah, as I said, doesn't feel like a 36mm, doesn't look like a 36mm on wrist either. The clasp on this one is okay if unspectacular, double trigger, coffee bean etched into it there as well. It's got that high polish chamfer, milled scissor, pressed upper, 4 holes of micro adjust though, no on the fly adjustability. It is a little bit old school, but then again, so is the rest of the watch, so it just about gets away with it, I guess. Alright, dial and hands, I will chuck in a bit of macro here and there as appropriate, but before I do, have a look at, well, what is effectively the kind of upper bezel surface, if you will, that sits beyond the chapter ring and before the outer bezel. Here it's black. If I angle it a bit, it's kind of silver grey, black silver grey. It really kind of, there we are, that's where it best illustrates it, going from the kind of black silver grey. Very, very nice effect. Again, just adding visual interest to this watch, as if it needed any more visual interest. The choice of VK68 is unusual. I cannot remember the last time I came across one of these. Most brands avoid them because
of the complete lack of symmetry, but Jonathan seems to have embraced that lack of symmetry and really run with it. 430 day, always a little bit awkward, but not really in this case because it has been colour matched so well. And check the two sub-registers. The small second register at 6 is symmetrical, that one certainly is not. The chrono timer up there, again between the kind of 9:30, 10 o'clock, is nothing like symmetrical, plus they are different sizes. It really throws the eye off initially, but that's the point. It makes you dig a little bit deeper, it makes you inspect further, and you are rewarded by all those different size variations and various different colour patterns as well. The dial itself is matte black. That coffee bean logo is recessed into the dial. All indices are applied, again kind of multifaceted, high polish edges to them. The hands likewise, high polished silver edges, black center sections and yellow tips. The central chronograph hand, also very unusual, bright orange, needle shaped with an eye to thread the needle on the counterbalance. Now that orange is replicated on the 60-minute chrono register up there at the 9:30, and the yellow from the tips of the hour and minute hand also features on the chapter ring between 25 and 35. Remember the coffee theme, 25 to 35 seconds is how long it takes to pull an espresso. Believe me, I spent nearly 2 decades of my working life within close proximity to a coffee machine, so that is accurate. Overall, it's quirky, it's fun, it's colourful, and it's really well resolved. On wrist looks good, feels good, and has a bag of presents for a 36mm. It has taken a couple of hairs off me, but we're not talking Timex or Casio hair nipping abilities here, nor nothing like it. As I said, I have no intention whatsoever of taking this one off the bracelet. 129 grams, yeah, a decent bit of weight to it thanks to the case, but it is nicely balanced by the bracelet, and you do have 4 holes of micro adjust, so you're pretty much guaranteed to get a decent fit because the links are really quite small. Overhead legibility is poor. Let's start the moans and niggles section now, shall we? Where's the hour hand? I've pretty much no idea myself, and I'm much closer to it than you are, believe me. Chrono's always a bit tricky, especially when the hands pass over the sub-registers, but given those yellow tips and the white sub-registers, yeah, legibility is not this one's strong suit, and that applies during the day and after dark as well. Because the lume isn't amazing either. I'm guessing it's BGW9, it isn't specified on their website. You know, it's that kind of ice blue colour. Chances are it's Superluminova BGW9. Looks okay initially. When I turn the speed up though, the hands fade before the indices, which is always suboptimal, and pretty much everything's gone by the end of my 20-minute test. Clasp, as discussed, is a little bit last gen. Most micros now are adopting something with on-the-fly adjustability, perhaps. That will be in a future run of metrics. Now, one thing I'm not going to complain about today is the price. I think $450 USD is actually very fair for this watch. So much design, so much attention to detail, so much inherent cool for under $500. I was happy to hand Jonathan my credit card for it. What I am going to complain about instead is the 12-month warranty. You know, I always complain about any brand, any watch offering less than 24 months. And there's a reason why. It's the industry standard. I said in the intro that in some ways Brew, and in particular this metric, represents the best of micro brands. It's design rich, it's interesting, it's quirky, and it's very well priced. It's far more engaging a watch than you would get from Seiko for similar money, and it costs so much less than a Zenith or another chronograph from a big Swiss brand, which makes it so much more attainable for so many more people. And that hasn't gone unnoticed. When people who could wear any watch they wanted choose to wear a Brew Metric, they got to be doing something right, haven't they?
So there you have it, a lovely reminder of my first trip to the Big Apple and a cracking watch. What though was watch number 2? What was my second pickup? Well, stay tuned to find out. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. I've only reviewed one other brew in the past. You can watch that video here, or what about a Islander from Long Island Watches? Wink, wink. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you again in the next one.